And welcome back. We are taking it on the road for you today. We want to talk to Sault Ste. Marie Mayor Christian Provenzano. Nice enough to let us barge into his office. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you doing? Nice to
Good.
see you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Now, the PC government, provincially, first time that they issued a budget, that's sort of been all the scuttle for the last, week or so.
Budgets usually are.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants a piece of it, right? So, how do you feel we did as far as is there anything in there for Sault Ste. Marie?
So I mean, there's global spending and global cuts. So I like that the city isn't identified individually, but that's very common. That generally communities aren't identified in
Well, there's
budgets.
too many of us,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. So the regions are identified, but communities generally aren't identified. Um, so look, there's a few things. First off, I want to recognize, and I think this is a positive. The OMPF funding doesn't seem to have been cut. So the OMPF funding is funding that certain municipalities receive from the provincial government. We're one of them. So I want to acknowledge that and thank Minister Fideli and the government for leaving that fund in place.
So, how will that help us?
Well, it doesn't help us as much as it doesn't create a challenge for us to have to deal with. So we currently receive OMPF funding, and it seems like that funding hopefully will be stable for next year. So if it wasn't, we would have to make up for that loss. So I think that's a positive takeaway. But from a larger perspective, as a mayor in Northern Ontario, as a mayor in Sault Ste. Marie, I was concerned with the scope of the investment in Toronto's transit. I think it's tens of billions of dollars. That tax money is coming from all over the province. And when you compare that spending, the scope of that spending, with commitments made to Northern Ontario, there's a real significant disproportionate allocation here. So, I'm concerned about that, and I think it's important that we speak to that honestly and respectfully and say, look, this doesn't seem equitable. If you're going to spend tens of millions of dollars on subways in Toronto, you really have to consider some of the critical infrastructure needs that we have in Northern Ontario. But it seems that we went the other way. So the province, it appears, is going to be cutting some of the provincial share of the gas tax that was previously made available to municipalities. I don't know to what degree, and I don't know how that's going to specifically affect Sault Ste. Marie yet. But that will be a loss of revenue for us, which will create a challenge. And another thing that concerns me with respect to our municipal levy is that there was a significant cut in social services. So that's just a cut in funding for social services. So you have your social service and administration boards in all the different regions. In Sault Ste. Marie, we have the DSAP, right? So we have our social service administration board. And that's partly funded through the municipal levy. So we make a significant contribution to those social services. And I'm concerned if the funding is cut there and there is a loss of funding there, they'll have to make decisions at the Social Services Board to either cut services or to try and find other revenue. If they try and find other revenue, I expect they're going to look in the municipal levy for that. And so that's going to put more pressure on our residential tax base. So I think that that's something to be really mindful of as we move forward, and something that I'll keep an eye on, and I'll talk to the city councillors that are sitting on the Social Service Administration Board, and we'll have to deal with that issue when it comes to pass.
Now, as you said too, Mr. Mayor, they don't specifically talk about, city to city because there's way too many. But with us having two post-secondary education facilities, Sioux College and Algoma University, some dings there.
So look, I'm going to leave that though to the president of Algoma University and the president of Sioux College to speak to. I try and keeping all my comments, my constructive comments, and my concerns related specifically to how the municipality may be affected. We have a president of our college who's very capable, and a president of our university who's very capable, and I'll leave it to those two presidents to comment on how the education funding affects their institutions.
So, with regards to infrastructure, do you feel like you have a voice? Do you feel like, Sault Ste. Marie roads are horrible? Sudbury roads are horrible. That's the biggest thing people are talking about always. Do you have a voice with the provincial government?
So look, you make a good point. Our infrastructure's aged right across Northern Ontario. And frankly, across Ontario, the infrastructure's aged. But in Northern Ontario, we have some really acute challenges because we don't have the assessment growth. We don't have the revenue growth in our municipal tax base to deal with the aged infrastructure. So we need commitments from our federal and provincial partners to help us deal with those infrastructure challenges. And if they don't make those commitments, it's going to make it more difficult for us to deal with those infrastructure challenges because we don't have significant revenue sources. So what I saw when I looked at the budget and reflecting upon it, we have work to do. So I have work to do. The mayors in Northern Ontario have work to do, and the leadership at the mayor level and at the city council level in Northern Ontario has work to do. We have to make the case to this government that they need to invest in Northern Ontario, and we will look forward and we will do that.
What's your reaction on the street? Because I'm sure people are very willing and happy to discuss things with you. With regards to how quickly this government is doing things on a provincial level, with cuts here and cuts there. And people are really talking about that part of it, how he's just like doing all these things spur of the moment, it seems.
Well, look, you're right to identify that people talk to me about a wide range of issues. And obviously, there's a number of concerns. There's concerns from the community that relate to people that have children or adults with autism, and what the funding for autism and how that's going to affect the people, the loved ones in their life, and also the community at large. And, we don't know what the effect it is going to be on the social services cuts. We have a lot of people in our community who are involved in the social service system. So, look, governments change. And whenever a government changes, you have to take some time to get used to the new government, to figure out ways to work with the new government, and to understand the new government's plans. So this is their first budget. And so I think we're at a stage now where we can learn about what the government's going to try and do, and we can look at how what they're going to try and do fits in with what we're going to try and do, and frankly find ways to work together. But I think through that, you have to be clear, and you have to be professional, and you have to voice and communicate where you are concerned. And I've been trying to do that. One of the things that I've been trying to do that on is healthcare spending, specifically relating to the opioid epidemic. A lot of people look to the municipality.
Yes.
A lot of people look to us and say, "What are you doing about this?" And I understand that, and it's natural, and it's okay. But the reality is, we don't have any jurisdiction on healthcare, and we don't have any funding for healthcare. So what we really are is a community supporter and facilitator, and making sure the people in our community that are serving the front lines and the people in our community that are working on these challenging issues, have the support they need. And when they don't, we advocate and lobby for them. And so over the next near term, I really hope we get a response back from the provincial government on Sault Area Hospital's application to get a level 3 withdrawal management facility here in Sault Ste. Marie. I think that's critical. And I'll keep on advocating for that. So, I hear all kinds of things when I'm out and about. I hear about those things. I hear about, as you point out, the state of the streets. I hear about the potholes. I hear about Bay Street. We're going to fix Bay Street this summer, and Queen Street next. So, you listen, and you come back into City Hall and you work your best to address the concerns that are being raised with you.
Well, I certainly appreciate you taking time. I know how busy you are. And also, I think it's awesome that we're able at On TV to help our municipality and our city understand that you do have our back and there is a voice.
Listen, it's my primary job. I'm elected to represent the city at large. I'm elected to represent the city to the province at large and the country at large. And Ross is elected to represent us in the legislature, and Terry in the House of Commons. And the three of us have to find ways to work together so we can move our community forward. But in the end, no matter what, I'm going to speak honestly and sincerely on behalf of the city.
Appreciate it. The three wise men, right?
Yeah, I guess you can call it. I don't know about that, but
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it.
take care.
We'll take this break. We'll be right back. You're on.